I talk with regulators, senators, and we discuss blockchain. We try to figure out some of the verbiage and how we're going to use blockchain fairly and creatively in the new ecosystem. So really the truth is if we're using blockchain correctly, you guys, we are using blockchain. And we're not going to have companies create blockchain products for us. We're going to start to utilize the tools. So what does that look like if we're going to be regulating it? And so if you guys, any questions are acceptable. I don't know what your educations are regarding blockchain, but if you guys have any questions, simple, complex, I run layer 1 blockchain tech. So I've been researching blockchain for about 9 years now. I pulled apart Bitcoin, Ethereum, and many other networks. And so we're settling on blockchain as a tool, a commodity, if you will. And so how do we properly deploy this commodity amongst the population so that they can start to leverage the tech and start communicating peer-to-peer without mediators? And if none of that makes sense to you, you're in the right place because we're going to talk about all those concepts to help you guys understand a little bit what that means. Can somebody give me an explanation of what they think blockchain is?
Digital signature.
Okay, a digital signature of?
Whatever piece
Okay.
of information it is.
Validation, right? And so how do we construct these blockchains? What are they made out of? Do you guys know? It's all this big mystery. Is it magical tech? Is there something really here?
It's like an accounting ledger that is digital, and you can have contracts so that you know what actions have been taken in order to generate, say, payment or transfer of capital.
Okay, yeah, I like that because we have the validation, right? We can check. And then we also have the fact that it's open and public, so it's there, and there's no central authority, right? It's decentralized. And so the components of value in blockchain are very simple. We are allowed now to communicate directly without a mediator, and right now it looks like we might see some mediation coming in to try to mediate that. And this is where the rub starts with blockchain. So how do we discuss openly with our senators to properly deploy blockchain in our current ecosystem? And why do I ask this question? Because I've helped a couple of senators in town write some BDRs to submit for education on blockchain, because what the most important thing is right now is how the tool works and what it's meant for and what it can do for us, versus how do we make sure that the next crypto scam doesn't run off with the money, and how do we get that money back to the people that have lost it? Because that was actually regulation that we tried to rub out. A senator wanted to push something through to create an account so that when scams ran off with blockchain money, they would get somehow made whole again. Now that doesn't make sense. What we need to do is start to teach people what blockchain is, so A, they can identify a scam when they see it, and then they can start to leverage the technology for what it's meant for, which is peer-to-peer communication, validation, right? And confirmation of information, money, or data. All right, so let's get started. The introduction, blockchain. The blockchain debate is a hot topic in the world of finance technology. Have you guys heard of it? You guys have heard of it, right? Yeah. So we know this is a hot topic. Does anybody think this is going to phase? It's going to like flash and burn in the pan? Or is this here to stay? Is this a technology we're going to start using? I think the answer is yes, because it's using asymmetric encryption, and this stuff is pretty tough to bust, and it's public. And once you alter anything, it gets rejected from the system. So we can utilize the system as a blanket of truth for communicating, which is really interesting. So it's not going away. It's only going to get further developed. And once we figure out what that development looks like, we're going to start to hopefully do some pretty amazing things as a culture. The blockchain revolution has been a major disruptor in the financial industry. Can we name some other major disruptors that we have heard of in the past? Can anybody, has everybody rewound their videotape and returned it to Blockbuster recently? Right? So what disrupted Blockbuster? Why was Blockbuster gone? It was a perfectly good thing. What's that? Netflix. So what was Netflix?
Streaming.
Netflix was a use of technology to funnel directly to that environment out of convenience and cost. And this is exactly the shift we're going to see as blockchain changes the environment for convenience and cost, where the current environment is not as efficient like Blockbuster. Okay? And I need you guys to understand that, because this is the rub. This is really what blockchain is here for. It's here to be peer peer-to-peer communication without a central third party to validate whether that is true or not. So what does that mean? Well, sir, you have a debit card in your pocket and you may want to buy something from a store. So does that store trust you, or does it swipe and validate for you to make a purchase? Swipe and validate, right? So who's the validator in that case? The bank. So who is the middleman? The bank. Okay, so now we have a digital environment that no longer requires that infrastructure for validation. So like Blockbuster, what will slowly and eventually happen as money starts to leave that system and enter into the new system?
So you're saying the bank is going to disappear eventually?
I don't know if the banks are going to disappear, but we do know that banks are closing at an extremely fast rate. Private banks have been shutting down by the thousands for the past 10 years. The FDIC has a list. Check out the bank closure list. It's a really interesting thing to understand, because that is a factual thing happening in reality. That means this must be having to do with that. If you consider finance, if money is not moving in and around, this thing loses weight and it falls. So you have to have the money circulating around to keep it afloat. If money is leaving or seeping out into a different environment, it deflates this particular environment. It gets weaker, insolvent, and then starts to close and crash, or gets absorbed by entities that can keep it going. And we're starting to see that now as larger banks are starting to gobble up smaller banks, right? Okay, so we have to understand why it is important to start to look into blockchain, because there are certain concepts that people don't really understand yet because they're so natively foreign to what you were born into or what you understand. And self-custody is one of them. Blockchain allows an individual to host, hold, and contain their own money, very much like having a block of gold under your bed. The problem with a block of gold under your bed is if you get robbed and somebody sees the gold, they can take it. Or if you want to flee, it's hard to hide a block of gold, okay? But in blockchain, you can effortlessly move border-free and hide your value, and nobody can find it because it's hidden on the blockchain. But what's really interesting is, just like we had to learn where the @ sign was on the keyboard when email came out. I'm going to go towards the side that I think may understand that a little bit better, like me. We didn't know where that @ sign was on the keyboard because we'd never used it. We'd used the alphabet and a few other key components, but the @ sign was useless to us.
It didn't have value.
It did not have value, and we did not understand it. And so, but we were forced when work started using email to do what? Well, you have to get an email now. You have to learn where the @ sign is. And you also have to learn how blockchain works so you can start to utilize the technology as well. This is another moment in history where we will ascend to this new knowledge and start to utilize it because of a need. Our current infrastructure is starting to slowly collapse. It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But it is an inevitability as long as this technology keeps proliferating. Now, what if the US just bans it? Does that make any sense? What if the US just says, that's it, we're banning blockchain, anything blockchain, we're just banning it? Does that work? Why does that not work? Right, this is a global infrastructure, a decentralized global infrastructure. So it doesn't matter if the US says they don't like it, other countries will just keep moving right along using a value peg that is not the US dollar, which, if you ask me, is probably a better deal than what they've been getting over the past, 50 to 100 years. So they're not motivated to stop by any way, shape, or form, which means you get on the wagon or you ride the decline of the dollar down and see what the US will return back to you. And that's a very scary proposition. And so it becomes very interesting that we have this little loophole in our system to move our value off of a system and onto a globally accessible system. It doesn't matter if the bank shuts down. As long as the blockchain network remains up, you have access to your money. And since it's a global network and it's managed by decentralized environments all over the planet, no one government can shut it down. And so this gives us a new opportunity to use the technology, but we have to learn first. We have to understand what self-custody really is, the strategies, the techniques, and the security to use it. And so this is why it has benefits, but there's risks. There's risks. Just like sending an email to the wrong person or spamming a whole bunch of friends with a nudie pic. You have to learn the responsibility of what self-custody is in this new world, because it is far different than what we've been doing. We've been very lax in our responsibility with our money. We really don't understand how money works, how finance works, how interest grows. But in these new blockchain environments, once you learn that responsibility, you can start leveraging the global communication network for yourself. Not for Morgan Stanley and you, not for another investment company in you, but privately for yourself. And this is where you've heard those phrases, become your own bank. So when people have enough money and they know how to leverage blockchain, they can tap in privately on a network that's not globally accessible, or that's globally accessible, and no government can touch it. No government's even aware of it. When you see how these things are constructed, you'll understand what I mean. So let's go through the timeline. So Bitcoin's created in 2009. We'd never heard of anything like it. I know when my brother came to me in 2010, I laughed at him and told him no, and I slammed the door. And then he called me back in 2012, and he said he had retired, and he was a 35-year stack developer. I probably should have threw that in. And he knew something that nobody else understood. He knew it. And he was right. So he bought a ton of Bitcoins in 2012, which is when I started researching. And then everything else started happening from then. We started seeing things and hearing things like self-custody wallets we'd never seen before. Cryptocurrency exchanges began arising. We had never really understood it. I was buying Bitcoin when I had to write a letter to have money sent into an escrow account in China, so I could have my Bitcoin sent into account and then receive them that way, because US exchanges didn't exist. So this is the evolution, and now we're here where we're seeing all of these regulatory bodies move because we've seen major crashes and misunderstandings of how blockchain is supposed to work. Has anybody heard of FTX? Okay, of course you have, right? So this was a big debacle. What we did was we created the same type of business model that's been stealing from people, and then we slapped it on top of blockchain. And they were able to have complete control of the money, our money, and then because they had control, just like in the past, they were able to do whatever they wish. And unfortunately, you get enough money in one person's hands, and you gotta be careful, right? So we're gonna stop creating honey pots, okay? A honey pot is an environment where you give all your money to somebody, and they say, hey, I'm gonna go give you guys some interest, I'll be back later. That's a honey pot, because he can run with that honey pot all of our money. We're gonna synergize with technology, and we're gonna start to create things like honeycombs, where you keep your money in your wallet, you keep your money in your wallet. It's all protected with asymmetric encryption, but we can combine our wallets with the outer shell still intact. Still nobody has access to the money, and we can synergize that money to do works, to do acts, to actually function and support networks or validate on networks. This is very rare. One of the concepts we need to understand the most, and you guys have heard this, be your own bank. Be your own bank. How many people bought Dogecoin and became their own bank? So this is a misuse of the application of the technology. What people don't understand the most is that cryptocurrency is a simple use case on blockchain. Blockchain is so strong, we can put a money, a value on it, and leave it open to the world to see it, yet they can't augment it or change it. But the problem is anybody can create a token or a coin. The money is in the networks, the technology itself of validating those things. And so when you realize and learn that you can privately tap into these networks and yield on the actions of those networks, the world becomes a very different place. It's what I've been doing. All right, so we know that we have to understand self-custody. We know that there's an evolution of change, and regulation is upon us. So security, let's talk about the security risks and challenges really quick. So cryptocurrency users must take responsibility for their own security, which can be difficult to manage. You guys, not every human being will have the savvy or the mental wits to do this at this time, but the people that get out of the way first will probably do better, okay? There will be new business models that pop up where self-custody or custody solutions are part of the environment. Grandma needs care, she can't manage her money, and there's going to have to be somebody that starts to do that. We're gonna figure out what that is, but we don't know what it is right now. So when people come to me and they say, well, it can't work for everybody, so it's not gonna work, I say, okay, let's get a handle on that statement. It can't work for everybody, not yet. But for you to abandon it because of that, you're going to miss out on what's evolving in our system right now. And so that's the thing that you need to hold on to. Things are changing, and it's not ready for everybody, but it's coming. So the technological knowledge, cryptocurrency users must have a certain level of technical knowledge and use self-custody wallets. Like I said, how many people bought Dogecoin, left it in Coinbase, and became wealthy or were their own bank? They weren't. What they did is Coinbase is a custody solution. And there's a phrase in blockchain, not your keys, not your crypto. Have you guys heard that? Okay. If you don't hold your own keys, sir, you have just moved into a digital bank that's controlled by somebody else. If you're holding your own keys and you know how to properly do it and you have proper backups like crypto steals, ledgers, and trezors, you're probably doing just fine. Yes, ma'am?
Can you help us understand what it means to hold your own keys in cryptocurrency?
Yeah. So to hold your own keys in cryptocurrency is very simple. You privately construct your own wallet. You design and build or have issued your seed phrase, and your seed phrase you take care of yourself. Now, this is a strange thing because now we're back to pen and paper. Why? Because if you write or digitize your seed phrase, it's possible that AI could find it in the future scraping through data. A lot of people, they want to be really organized, and so what do? They say, hey, I'm going to type up my seed phrase and print it out on a sheet, and then I'm going to delete it from my computer. That's a few mistakes in a row because printers contain memory that can be scraped. Your computer has trash bins and TOCs in the drives that can be rekindled so they can find old data that you've deleted. If you really want to own a wallet, you construct that seed phrase, you actually put it on steel, and you hide it, or you put it in a safe that nobody can get access to. That is true backup. That's real self-custody. Yeah. What's that?
Put it on steel?
There are devices, and I can teach you how to use them. They're called crypto steels. And it's a constructed steel plate with Scrabble tiles on it with letters. And you build your own private seed phrase on that, and then you sandwich it between another piece of steel. And it looks just like a brick of steel. And then you hide it somewhere or put it in a safe. Why do we do that? Does anybody know? Does anybody know why we protect our crypto in that manner?
I mean, so this is your private key with your hash, right? So
But this is your seed phrase. Your seed phrase is everything because your seed phrase allows you to reconstruct the wallet and reset the password. Okay? So there's a hierarchy of value. Your password's important, but your seed phrase is everything. Because whoever gets your seed phrase now has access to your money, and they can even reset the password and take the money. So we have to go to extreme lengths to protect it. Yeah?
So when you say AI can scrape for that, is it because it's labeled seed phrase or is the pattern of the seed phrase?
It would be the pattern on how they're written because there's 12, 15, and 24-word seed phrases, and they all are numbered. And so you could just tell AI, hey, find every bit of data you can with increments of 1 to 12, 1 to 15, or 1 to 24 with words, and it can start scraping stuff. I built a scraper last week, and it got me 1,600 bits of data that I wanted. I wasn't looking for that, by the way, but it did it in an hour. And so people can build these things, especially with AI, to start looking through this stuff. And so we have to be ultimately really careful with how we do it, and we have to actually be offline. No computer whatsoever, no screenshots, doing it privately with no cameras around, nobody with you, because if they know the seed phrase, they can reset your password and take your money.
So this is separate from hash or private key encryption or anything?
Yeah, so this is the encryption, right? You're talking about how the wallet's constructed, but then it's constructed in a location on the blockchain. And think of your seed phrase as the coordinates to get back to that location, okay? Yeah.
So we don't have to talk about this now, but I start to wonder about redundancy of the access to this data when it's so secure offline, but the person passes away. And
Correct.
You know, like all this money can potentially be lost because it's locked up indefinitely because nobody knows where that seed
Correct.
is at. And how is that being addressed?
You know, this takes us back to a time where we have to think differently. A lot of people say, if it's valuable, I have to store it on my computer, lock it behind some passwords or whatever. This is different. We really have to think more strategically, more mercurially, where we can store it offline in interesting and creative ways. And that's part of the fun of this, is you get to be creative by different style crypto steals, insert them wherever you wish, hide them wherever you wish. Some people have libraries of books, and within one of the books, it has all of their seed phrases highlighted throughout the book. You just have to flip through the pages and you can find all the words there. People have done that, and then they put it in the will. and they say, if I die, seek this book out. Put the highlighted words in here. That way, nobody would ever know that up until the time of death, but you still have a way to restore these things. Any questions on that? And that's just one way that I heard of that's rare. They also have crypto steels that are cylinders, and I've heard people drilling or boring through wood in their home and inserting a cylinder and corking it and then painting over it and saying, I will never access that, but I know where it is, and a few key people also know.
Something as simple as like a banker's box.
Yeah, something's, you can go as crazy as you want.
Got that too, but those
Yeah.
are like accessible type of
The thing is if it's a target, if it looks like a target, it could become a target.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is you could hide these things anywhere, in any way, in many different ways. It's just your creativity and then the breadcrumbs you leave your family to make sure that they can get to it later. And that's the games we need to start playing because it can't go online. This data can't go online. And so because of the security risks, we have to have the technological know-how, and we have regulatory uncertainty. Now, what does regulatory uncertainty mean for us? We don't know what's going to happen. So where do we put our money? Do we leave it in a bank? Do we leave it on a blockchain that's or a custody solution like Coinbase or Binance? It's out of US dollars, it's in crypto, right? Isn't that different? Well, the problem is those are custody environments. A bank is a custody environment. An exchange is a custody environment. They have KYC, AML. They have to report to the government and make sure everything is in line because they're holding your money.
KYC, know your customer.
Yeah, know your customer. So you want to get in the private arena in blockchain where you're in a globally accessible network, it's cheap, it's adopted, and it's growing. And that is one of the tricky things that I've been working on for a very long time. So why are we running in this direction? Because the SEC rules and proposals state that they're going to start to put infringements on how we can use our money. Has anybody heard of some of these CBDCs that are coming out? Does anybody know what that is? Okay, so a CBDC is a crypto, and it's basically a crypto that they hold the policy ID for all the coins, so they have record of all of them, and they control the ledger, which means if they don't like that you're spending $10,000 on that, whatever, that widget, they can say, you can't spend that, and they can stop it on the fly. And this is a problem. They can also expire your money. You made too much money this year. If you don't spend X, we'll expire it, and that will just disappear from your account. This is in the CBDC. There are many regulators that are moving against this because it's a privacy breach. The government controls your money. They would control your identity. And that's just too much. The government is supposed to be our servant. They're supposed to serve us. And this does not do that. And it's all in the greater good, by the way, because the last thing I heard was a CBDC can make sure that people on welfare are buying only the things they're supposed to and not buying cigarettes, liquor, or whatever. And they went from a 12% acceptance to 33% acceptance once people heard that. But what people don't realize is that's the seed. Once the CBDC gets deployed for that, then it goes into medical, then it goes into other environments, and then all of a sudden it's in yours. And yeah.
You know, stay on the point, but speak to this in terms of store of value and means of exchange, because
Right.
those seem to be the main things. And you know, back in the history, the run of the banks, because initially the states printed money, and then when people stopped believing in it, and they try to, you know, get whatever is the thing that people believe in, say like gold,
Like bank runs, right?
Then you have the bank. So because it's still a faith economy, but
It's always a faith economy, okay? It'll never not be a faith economy. And so that being said, what will we have faith in? Will we have faith in dollars that are declining because they keep getting printed, right? Every time money is printed, the money you own just drops in value. It's a form of organized theft. And it angers the other countries that leverage their value off of our dollar. So it's a global theft every time we print our dollars into existence. And that's just the simple act of it. And so other countries are very happy to move off of the dollar standard because now they won't have their values dropping and manipulated. Who's heard of BRICS? Has anybody heard of BRICS? Can somebody Google BRICS for me and tell me what it is? Britain, Russia, I'm going to give you guys a couple, but not all. Brazil? Oh, Brazil, Russia.
India, China.
India, China.
Okay, so these are some pretty big places, right? These guys just announced their own monetary reserve for the first time in history. Monetary reserve, which means they're no longer going to use the dollar very soon. They're going to have a currency that's based off of the value they carry. And if you look at those continents and what they produce as far as resources, we have a lot of interesting conversations to be had, where we're no longer going to be the power that's negotiating. So it's going to be a supply chain issue, and we've heard that seed planted. We know that supply chains will start to dwindle. It's not going to be because we are suffering from production. It's going to be because we're suffering from import, because they're renegotiating the deal. They will be renegotiating at different prices, okay? And so these are concerns that we should have. So the big question is how do we step off of the side of this? How do we leave it? And this is where blockchain and leveraging blockchain starts to become very interesting. I'm just going to go over this. So we're looking at right now they redesigned the current custody rules in 223. They say it's for safeguarding. And so they're expanding the types of assets subject to safeguarding, right? So they want to protect us. And they're expanding the definition of custody to include discretionary trading authority. You guys, we should be able to trade amongst each other without any kind of mediator that says whether or not we can do it. If I want to buy a room full of whatever, I should be able to buy that, as long as it's not like going to hurt the world, like petroleum or some sort of nuclear something or other. So we shouldn't have these types of things embedded in our money. Okay, we can have authorities seek us out and stop us. But when it's embedded in our money, we lose the choice. We have to perform a bad action to get a repercussion. We can't have people stopping us first, right? You have to commit the crime. This is like Minority Report. Have you ever seen it? They would catch these guys before they committed the crime. They'd stop them in their tracks. And they slowly realize, oh, wait, would these guys have really committed the crime? Was this 100% real? Right? So crimes have to be committed. These mechanisms will stop us from being able to do actions. That's not freedom, if you ask me. That's important to understand. Yeah, I don't like people taking my money, that's for sure. And I don't like people devaluing it either. Sorry, guys, my internet's a little slow, so I'm just trying to move to the next slide. Any questions so far? Has anybody heard anything like this before or understood blockchain in this way? Anything? I hear a lot of people really trying to push coins, tokens, narratives, individual blockchains. Hey, my buddy and I are coming out with this cool thing and we're going to fix this problem. It's just a company building on the tech. You want to look for the top 3 or top 4 base layer techs that are being adopted globally, and you want to stick your money on there, but you want to buy the network. Don't buy businesses building on that network. They will come and go like the night and day. Like Dogecoin, which is a copy of Bitcoin, right? Yes. Yeah. Bitcoin's a great store of value. It's probably one of our first attempts to get out of globally controlled money and into a third-party environment that has no authority in it. So it's an excellent move, and I believe the way the network's constructed, it uses the hash asymmetric encryption, right? There's a few issues with it, like the mining or the proof of work model. But we are resolving a lot of those things with side chains. I think Bitcoin, short answer is it'll be okay in the long term, but there are better ways to do peer-to-peer transactions, yeah.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by network? You say the value is in the network and not the ledger or the coin?
Well, the value is, okay, say that again. I want to understand your question.
You say the value is in the network.
Yes. So the value is in the network, meaning that what will sustain may or may not be the business that's building on the network, but the Bitcoin network itself will be there, right? The blockchain network itself will be there. And so some people will create a business on Bitcoin, or some people will create a side coin on Bitcoin, like Dogecoin, right? And so these are all things people are buying, but will Dogecoin be valuable? No, maybe not. I don't know what Elon does. You never know, right? But that is a product on the network utilizing the technology. Bitcoin, the layer 1, that's the technology you want to buy. Or Ethereum, that's the layer 1. You don't want to buy all these other side coins on Ethereum because you're going to always need Ethereum to run the Ethereum network. Cardano is a mechanism that transports the transaction from one wallet to another. So everybody has to have Cardano to use the network, which makes it not a security, it makes it a commodity. Okay? And so these are things that the SEC will learn after they start to rip apart these networks like I have and say, oh, okay, well, Bitcoin is pretty fair as long as you're self-custodying and you're not sending it to somebody. Ethereum is okay, but mind the smart contracts because they can be hacked. It's not part of blockchain. It's somebody that wrote a software that can be hacked on blockchain. That's different. And then self-custody environments like Cardano that are cheap will probably proliferate throughout the world because what are we supposed to be banking in this next generation? The unbanked? How many millionaires are in the unbanked? 0. We're talking about the poor. There's 3 billion poor that need banking services. Can they afford expensive networks?
So
Right?
on that point, are the XLM and XRPs that bank to unbanked, are those the networks?
I don't believe any network that has a secondary chain or an absorbent cost will bank the unbanked. I believe it will have to be a free, near cheap network that is globally accessible. And that's just the facts. Last time I've talked to somebody that made $200 a year, that's going to be what they're going to go for. They're going to say, I don't care how cool the network is. If I need to send money to my mom, I need an 18-cent transaction. I don't need a $30 transaction fee. And so they're going to start to gravitate towards that. I was actually speaking with somebody at the karaoke party at Traverna this week, and he has a business. And his business is to allow a politician, hey Doc, this one might be for you, I gotta hook you guys up, to hit a button and he can simultaneously broadcast on Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, and a few other medias, and it transcribes and mints the thing into an NFT at the end and drops it into every listener's wallet. This is all fully automated. And his biggest complaint was this, gosh, I hate when we have to mint those NFTs, they cost so much. And I said, well, what network are you building on? Well, of course, it's Ethereum. That's what everybody's building on. And I said, well, have you ever considered cheaper networks that have the same cybersecurity model? He's like, well, like what? And we discussed Cardano. I said, yeah. And I said, 18 cents transaction. It's got double the security layer, and it's globally accessible. Universities are adopting it. Governments are adopting it. It's going to be here for a while. Right. And so he was like, it was on our list to build APIs for it. And he's like, now I'm moving it to the top of the list, knowing that we can increase our bottom line. How many businesses do you think are going to follow suit on that? Businesses want profit. They're not going to stay in trendy, expensive networks for very long, especially as the economy declines.
So how long before direct deposit people's paychecks in crypto?
You tell me, guys, because as soon as we start to knock on doors, and as soon as we start to alert our senators to the need, and as soon as we start to learn how to use this tech privately and realize it's not a company's responsibility to give us a tool, it's our responsibility to learn how to, I'm pointing to a blank screen, sorry, to use this tool, that's when things will start to change.
So that was a follow-up to one of the discussions that we had this morning.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In addition, you then have to pay taxes
Correct.
to the government. So
Correct.
how will a company that is using crypto or digital currency then pay taxes to the government?
And this is a wonderful question because everything on the blockchain is open, okay? It is public. So all the IRS has to do is write one service that will read a wallet and scan a 12-month transaction history, and they can get all the accurate data themselves. And the truth of the matter is that is a problem I always hear and is literally not even on the list of problems because it's already solved. The blockchain is open. We don't have any more private businesses where IRS needs to go through a book. We need to come into your office and go through your files. No, it's all on blockchain. Here's my wallet address. These are the transactions the business did. Leave me alone. It's 100% accurate, by the way, because I couldn't change it if I wanted to. Right. And so people keep focusing on that as if it's some sort of hammer, but it's actually not. It's done deal. We need to move on to more sophisticated topics. It's open.
India has moved to that point.
Yeah.
Not only requires you to file your taxes 4 times a month,
Because they want the money sooner.
48 times a year.
And wait until they automate it. Wait until they automate it and you're just swiping and paying and your taxes are taken out on the fly. Because that's our evolution. We will start to see automation take over and streamline these processes. So the IRS should be pretty happy, but they shouldn't be happy that they hired so many new people because the automation is going to require nobody, a very slim group, a managerial group to manage all of this, because everything can be done through blockchain autonomously and automatically. And so these are things that people aren't understanding. It is a blockbuster Netflix situation that we're seeing right now. And I hate to say it so lightly because that's entertainment and movies, but this is our money. These are our financial systems that we grew up with, and they are going to change. They must change. And if they don't, that means we suffer. That means we lose control of our money, we lose control of our identity, and we don't have choices that we used to have. And it only starts like that initially, and then it slowly closes and closes and closes until there's no control at all.
So,
Yeah. I'm gonna try to get my Wi-Fi up again.
So, I mean, I've got a couple of thoughts on that as
Yeah.
far as like something you brought up and something you brought up to kind of like round everything out. Like, I think you had asked like, why is like a Bitcoin this much money, or the value of each thing, and talking about the market levels of each one. But like, $1 is only $1 because you and I agree on $1. A dollar is this piece of paper. We all ubiquitously know that that's dollar. Full faith and credit. Yeah, yeah. But it's just a piece of paper, is all it is. And then, if we go one step further to that, where you're talking about the transactions and stuff like that. Right now, you go over to the coffee shop over here. They're using a little toast thing. That little toast thing charges a fee. Visa, like my Visa card, charges a fee. Visa gets their cut, Toast gets their cut, whoever, IRS, whatever, the tax, all of those fees are all then tacked on to what you and I have unanimously decided is $10. And you put all those together, and so it's charging everybody so much money just to cost for a cup of coffee.
The cost of the process.
$10.
Right.
Yep. And so using something like blockchain, now it doesn't, what is $1? What is $1?
And here's the interesting thing on top of that. Now you're talking about only 4 banks.
Yeah, oh, you already narrowed it down. Yeah, there's going to be about 4.
Only
Okay.
4 banks.
That's
You're
good.
talking about a universal currency. And so the question is, what is $1 here in the United States worth, and what's $1 over in the UK worth, and how do they balance that? And we lose out as a result.
Obviously we do. Because the fact of the matter is we are the richest country in the world, right? We live to a standard that most people couldn't even dream of. And when the world balances that out, and these phrases have been thrown out there and misunderstood, the great wealth transfer, okay? We're going to see if these things deploy a great wealth transfer while the world balances out its economies to one global economy. And we lose in that because we have been taking far more than we've been giving. I'm sorry, you guys, that's just the facts. China's been having their kids code since 6, I think I heard. These guys have been running software engines and creating AI and building the largest blockchain farms for years. How many times has China banned Bitcoin? 7? 7 times? They're crashing the market deliberately. They're not stopping it, but they crash it and they buy in and then it rises. Okay? These are tactics, you guys. I buy more. I went back to work for a little while. I'm seeing patients at a clinic because we're in a down market. I want more money. I want more liquid cash just to invest more. So I'm actually working right now. It's kind of fun.
I just keep buying more.
Yeah.
I have an interesting question to ask that. I know
Yeah.
we're talking a lot about cryptocurrency, but ultimately all of these coins are built on top of blockchain.
Correct.
And we talked about the value of $1. What I love the most about blockchain and cryptocurrency is that it's the value of the transaction. It's the value of a service that's being performed, that there's a competitor in the space, Visa and Toast and all of that
Correct.
stuff. So I'm curious to understand, like we talked a lot about regulation, but what do you feel, I feel like regulation/government support and education will be the 2 biggest answers. But what else is the gap? Like what are we missing to bring blockchain, and not just cryptocurrency, but all of blockchain to the forefront of, I can no longer leave this room half empty. We all need to be here and part of this conversation.
Go for it. I'd love to hear the answer.
I think what is going to change the entirety of like the mass adoption of blockchain is when your grandma can figure out
You think that might be a game changer?
So I think that is not, I don't know what we talked about there, but that's a discussion. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just feel like his point is true in the sense that it's not about her learning how to use it, but not even realizing that
When
she's
is it gonna be?
Almost like just a click of a button, right?
So that's the discussion.
You and I can sit for hours and figure out.
It's here,
these
guys.
blockchains and we can stamp
It's here.
our-
It's
I mean,
here.
that's-
I haven't showed it. I haven't showed it. It's here. What you just needed for mass adoption and understanding, it's here. I just showed Doc this morning. And so we have now wallets that can be created with a push of a button. And somebody can have money. Your grandma can be stuck. My money's not working. Grandma, here's a link. Click this button. Here's a wallet. $50 in it. Pay for your stuff. Meet me at home. We'll settle you out.
All she needs is a QR code.
All she needs. And it's fast. You built it in
Without even trying.
right? You just went there and it was there. So these things are happening, these things are coming, and this will support mass adoption. But it does pivot off of this. We need everybody to use it. The fact of the matter is we should be exchanging our value outside of government control. We should be able to send each other crypto at will, privately. And until we start doing that, these networks will just sit waiting there for us to use them.
There is still that layer of person, especially senior citizen and some people
Yeah.
who are not mentally competent,
Correct.
who will never be able to get it.
Never.
You know, there's still that
Right.
person, and so we have to build a system.
That supports that too.
The person
Right.
can have it, but there's some people who, if you hand $1 to them, you might have to tell them, don't eat this.
Correct.
Eat this for something of value.
So the same care will be required for the same people that need care now. There are companies that manage money for those people. Those companies will pivot into managing blockchain money for them. So really, the systems already exist. We just need to employ them with the power of how to use it. So that is something that we don't worry about because we know if they're being taken care of now, they're just going to be taken care of in a different way with the same people, most likely. And so legislation is the big problem right now. We're seeing a struggle between our government and our people, and who's going to win? Because Gary Gensler, a very interesting guy, the head chair of the SEC, really feels that a law passed in 1930 gives him the privilege to do what he's doing now. And I'll tell you this right now, Congress strongly disagrees. They strongly disagree with what he is doing. He's trying to do as much as he can, and Congress has already noted publicly they are working to remove him. And they're already trying to cast out the bill that he just tried to submit to rattle Coinbase and Binance. They're like, nope, get it out of here. We don't want anything to do with it.
The Federal Reserve in general strongly disagrees with what he's trying to do.
Absolutely.
And those are the unseen moving hands.
Right.
Oh, no, sorry,
Yeah,
because
no.
we keep talking about cryptocurrency
Yeah.
and blockchain.
Yeah.
What we talked about as like UI for this finance use case,
Mhm.
I definitely agree with. Not knowing how or making it complicated to fulfill a use case will definitely limit people from being able to do it. I think what I'm curious about is, and I feel like everyone in this room is probably thinking about that finance use case as well. Because I think when you're talking about money, and you're talking about the Federal Reserve, and you're talking about entirely this cryptocurrency world of things, the root value of that blockchain and the capability that it performs.
The capability.
I think we keep using the word token, right? And token has existed for a long time before cryptocurrency. You could buy a token for a different company, and you could use credit. You could use Chuck E. Cheese tokens to run these machines, right?
Right.
And the SEC never had anything to say about Chuck E. Cheese tokens. You spent 25 cents on a token, you use the token, and it's fine. You didn't need to regulate those things.
Right.
I'm really curious about this non-finance application and non-finance use cases to win the world over on blockchain, the core technology that all of the cryptocurrency is on. I'm curious if that's part of what legislation and education and UI need to win over all of the people who, if you give them $1, you have to tell them don't eat this.
Right.
If you give them a chip and you're like, this is a chip, you can't eat this, you can do all of these other things. You can tell where your oranges came from because we're tracking that with blockchain, and that's what it takes to win over the Federal Reserve for them to see the value of this. Because it is $1 that's backed by a gold bar, and that gold bar is the services that we're able to perform on blockchain.
In that network. And honestly, I love that narrative. That's beautifully said. I'm concerned that our interests might not be the same interests as other large bodies. And so as I agree logically, this would be the case. We could display this wonderful tool and show them, look at the value that it provides everybody. The only thing is you have to roll over and die. And they're going to say, no, we would rather have a CBDC and have complete control over everybody, and then we get to stay around and be relevant, because we have to manage all of this.
The other thing is the banks, because
Yeah.
the banks lose through this process.
Yes.
So the question is, how will they continue to charge you the same amount of money, same amount of interest for your mortgage that they gave you 10 years ago and still make money and stay in business? So they're going to be the biggest lobby against this.
Right, and so money, we're fighting money. Which
So, I
question?
mean,
Oh,
this is not called a wallet, but it's a wallet. I mean, we talk about, they call it this thing in urban planning, we call it the reproduction of power relations. Because power shifts, right? Because right now, this card hasn't been called a wallet ever. But we believe that we can use it as a store of value and a means of exchange, and now we're saying we
we're
want to
pivoting,
prove
right?
where the power is, and who, what do you call that? That term you call it?
Custody.
Self-custody of power.
Right.
Self-custody of means of exchange. We fumble over that when we already have it, but our belief is in this.
Here's the difference with the central bank digital coin. It eliminates that. And here's why. That's a 3-day process. That's a 3-day transaction. The other is an instant transaction like Zelle.
Close enough, yeah.
So that's really the only difference. Even though you're right, in today's society, that is a wallet. But if digital coin comes into existence, that's obsolete.
Correct. Because everything goes peer-to-peer, but they're the mediator forever. And instead of you saying, I don't want Visa, I want MasterCard, they say no. It's always Visa now, sir. And that is a problem, okay?
And they cut you off whenever. See, that's what they did to the truckers in Canada.
Yeah, they had access to their bank accounts and they shut it
cut
down.
off,
Right.
And that forced them to go back home.
Right.
Not only that, imagine every transaction you make, they have to essentially authorize in seconds.
Sorry, am I in your way?
They have to authorize it. And we may disagree a little bit on this, but they will cut you off. If you're in a casino gambling and you go to the ATM machine, even though you have enough money available, and say, no, he's gambling too much. I want him to use that.
It could really go there. It could go there and say, sir, you bought enough weed. We're going to end this transaction right now. You go home. You smoke that first.
It concerns you. No more dispensary. It concerns you.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, and we don't want to have that. We don't. Do we want, I guess is the question, do we want that kind of control? Because if we want it, it's here, and it's here for us to take. Or we have to do something radically different and get out of the system, and I'm pointing to my empty boxes again, sorry, and learn about self-custody.
As you indicated, it's also an opportunity for wealth distribution.
Yes.
Talking about self-custody, they shot
Look at this. They heard me, and no internet.
That's a hell of a picture.
Yeah.
If you knew that you had millions in that, and then all of a sudden, they clicked.
That's what you get, right?
And you're just getting.
And I'll tell you personally, privately, the reason why I have so much confidence in these networks is because, like I said, I've been researching them for quite some time right now. But I also do this for a living. I run blockchain servers. This is how I manage my own money. I have my own value. I run my own servers on a blockchain network, and they yield money for me. I don't wait for the money to go up in value and sell. I'm not a trader. I tap into these networks, and I earn transaction fees, which never stop, even in high or low markets. And that's how I make my income. But here's what I realize. Every single human being in here has that right to do it. I didn't apply for a job. I didn't know how to do it. I read the spec, I built it, it worked, and then I loaded my money on it, and I was happy after 5 days because I started receiving deposits and they've never stopped.
Swiss banking 3.0.
Yeah, it's Swiss banking on the moon, right? Because they can't get to it. And the cool thing is when I constructed my wallets, I didn't put any private information in there, not my phone number, not my name. Nobody knows I have this wallet. It exists in a virtual space that's the size of the universe, and it's as small as a molecule. So the search to find me is nearly impossible as long as I do my proper security and my proper management, which is what we teach. And so this is what our goal is. If we know that regulation might stifle our control of money, what do? We disempower, just like those bikers. How did they disempower the bikers? They took away their money. I can't get a beer while we're kicking it. I can't eat. I can't get gas for my vehicle. I gotta go. How do you disempower an entity that wants to control your money? You remove it from that environment. You take their power away. The only reason they can fight is because you're funding it. The only reason they can lobby it is because they're using your money to lobby it. And they're lobbying to control your money.
So is that like call to action? Everyone take your money from the banks?
Everybody, do what you can to learn about the situation, and I think you should make the decision yourself.
No,
And that's honest.
the thing we have to do is everybody withhold their taxes. Or do they pay their taxes? That's when you get the government's attention.
That's true. They don't like that one bit.
Come after all of us at once. They're the enemy. When it comes to this, they're the enemy.
Unfortunately, they're skewed in a perspective to preserve their existing ecosystem.
Right.
And that is the truth. They're motivated by fear of what will happen to them next. Like every Blockbuster employee had to sit there and say, what's going to happen to our jobs? I haven't seen anybody come in here all day.
401k.
Yeah, where's my 401k? I got kids on the way. I need to make this thing work. And that's what we're seeing, yeah.
Sorry if you already answered this, but
No, go
what
on.
do you think is the net for the FTX crash? Positive or negative for the community?
Well, boy, that's like a can of worms, the FTX crash.
I'm just saying, like, sometimes things have to blow up for them to,
Well,
because like you said,
yeah.
it's not blockchain,
It's just the same business
they
model.
can backdoor it and
Right.
use it for it.
Yeah, so we know that, what was it, 40 billion was given to a certain group to lobby against blockchain from FTX. We also know that family members were associated with SEC members that constructed FTX, and it was perfectly offshore in a place that they couldn't be reached or shut down. Like there was a lot of strategic strangeness that went around what FTX was and what it did, and then how they promoted the crash. The narrative was that blockchain is completely unsafe, and it can always be stolen, and this is why we don't do this, and we're shutting everybody down now, FTX, and we're going after Coinbase and Binance and all this. The truth is Binance is nothing like FTX, and Coinbase is nothing like FTX, but they are labeled in the same category to reduce the inflow of people going into blockchain.
So how are they nothing like FTX?
Because they're not using it as a trading environment. The FTX was two companies. So they were doing it as an exchange, and then they were using the funds to also fund projects, investment projects. So that's illegal. But they made it look like, oh, it's an exchange. They're going down too, and so are all the others. It's not the same at all. Yeah, it was a Ponzi scheme. So when you understand it to that depth, you're like, oh, well, exchanges are relatively safe, but now they've been labeled unsafe, and the SEC is coming for them. So do you put your money in exchanges? Do you leave your money in an exchange? I wouldn't. If you have money in Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, Gemini, any of them, please see me. I will help you move those funds into a private wallet of yours to get it at least out of an exchange. I don't want to see the government shut your money down and say, hey, by the way, FDIC is only going to give you $100 for every 1,000. That's all we have for the insurance pile.
It's like when I found out for Coinbase years ago, I didn't have to give them any information. But then, about
KYC.
3 years ago, they came at me and says, look, we're going to take your money if you don't give us your information. Well, that wasn't what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
That's dangerous.
And it is dangerous. Yes, ma'am.
What about the government version of the cryptocurrency?
The CBDC. That's what we've been talking about. It's a control mechanism. They can freeze, delete, and expire your money at will.
Okay,
That's what we were talking about. Yes. Oh, no, that's the CBDC that the U.S. is coming out with. The CUCSD coin, it's just a digital dollar version that somebody made. Yeah. So it's not the same. Yeah.
Is that app FedRAMP or something? Is it using this too?
Yes. That's how they're starting to deploy it. They're the FedNow program. Yeah, and the FedNow is going to touch a lot of lives, which means it's going to get the sustainability that it needs to continue. So what we have to understand is this. We're going to coexist. We will have blockchains, and then we will have CBDCs, but we have to understand how to use them and when to use them. Do we leave our value in an environment that it can be taken or erased from us? No, but if we have to buy milk, we're certainly going to exchange it from our private wallet into the CBDC, buy the milk, get our change, and zip right back to our private wallet, right? So we can use the system, but it's probably, until we know more, it's probably not a great idea to leave it in that system. Just like it's not a great idea to leave it in the current dollar, because how strong is the dollar these days? Stronger than ever, right? Unfortunately, it's not. It's declining rapidly. And so if you held the dollar, this is why I get small millionaires in my group. I get $2 to $5 million millionaires. They want to come to me. They want to preserve their money. They're like, look, if I don't get my money out of this environment, I lose 7%. Does anybody know what 7% is of $7 million? It's enough to make somebody not want to stay in the dollar, that's for sure. And so they're seeking environments that are private, not connected to government, and they also want to yield on it. They don't just want their money to sit there, right? So you get it out of government control, you get it yielding, you live off of the interest, and you make sure you can exchange it into some monetary form that can be re-circumvented into what you need. So the British pound or the euro or something like that, but not the American dollar right now. And so this is what I teach. I teach people private custody. I teach people the security models. I teach people the thought process that they need to take on to run with crypto. And I teach them how to identify good networks versus risky networks. All networks are good. All networks are secure because they're using asymmetric hash encryption. But will they be around tomorrow? And are they solving a problem that's probably already solved by a larger network, and so they'll just fizzle out? We don't know. So we sit, we talk about these things, we make educated guesses. And like I said, my educated guess was on Cardano, and so far we've been 100% accurate. Nobody in this network has lost a penny. And it seems to be moving more towards this narrative of what this network supports. Cheap, globally accessible, governance, so we can augment the network, and you get to self-custody and grow your own money. Have you ever heard that phrase, what, do you think I got a money tree in the house? With Cardano, you literally do. You have access and control of your money. It's always liquid and you're yielding. Nobody even knows this exists. It's brand new stuff. Just came out a few years ago. So we're waiting for the population to realize the strain and push and move into an area that is better for them. And these types of networks will be the ones that you see. So I apologize, guys. I totally lost my slideshow. I can't get internet access. So if we want to do some free conversation, that would be awesome. Any questions about what we're talking about here?
Well, I think maybe you would say something about how these, I guess, faith and value networks, history, whether it's, CME, commercial, the farmers, mercantile exchange, the gold exchange, and this, to me, is part of that evolution of how networks of value and exchange have happened. Most of us weren't invited in the past.
True, and everybody's invited today. And the interesting thing is why do we see things as valuable? Why have we chosen gold for thousands of years? Because it does not change, right? It can't change. And we thought up until recently there was a really finite amount, and we know that, okay, there could be more gold, that they could not be reporting how much they really got, the banks could be not really registering the right amount, so they could be inflating or deflating it. So we actually know that this can be manipulated outside now. Blockchain can't be.
The dollar's not even on the gold standard anymore.
No, they took it off, Nixon before that, I think. Was it 71 when Nixon did it? Yeah, thank you. And so we know that the dollar is just a representative of value that we've been promised. And now we can see that the environment that promise is made in is not as strong as we thought, and it's collapsing. So how long does it take for an individual to lose faith in that environment and seek to find another? And so what environments will we seek and why? Well, we're going to seek environments that will honor the value and not allow the value to shift. That means you guys, if you're looking for blockchains, make sure they have a fixed supply, that they cannot print or delete tokens. If they can print more tokens, what does that mean? Yeah, it's an inflationary environment. They can create inflation in the network. So what does that mean for Ethereum? You can print as many tokens or burn as many tokens as you want on the network. There's no limit. Why is Bitcoin more valuable? Because you can't print any tokens. There's 21 million fixed in that environment, which means a Bitcoin will only go up in value as more and more people use it. Same with Cardano.
How many Cardano tokens are there?
I think it's 41 billion. Yeah. So when you know what makes money valuable, reliability and value, cost of use of the network, the ability to augment the network during times of change. Can we see everything happening now? In 1930, when Congress made that bill that Gary Gensler's running off, did they know blockchain was going to be discussed in that bill? Did that bill include that thought? Of course not. They couldn't see this end coming, and we can't see the end coming in blockchain. So we need to make sure we have controls in these networks where we can shift and pivot when necessary. Cardano has the only network in history that has something called a hard fork combinator. I recommend you guys look it up. You can make a major technological shift inside the network and nobody even knows it's happening. So you can say, oh, AI's got quantum security now. Cool. So we can protect our nodes from quantum computers. And we can roll that out and continue. And you don't lose a second of use. You don't lose a second of use. The network doesn't have to go down. It keeps going. We've done 4 combinator events. And as a stake pool operator that runs the layer 1 on these networks, we're sitting there like this. We're sitting in our terminals going, okay, I did this upgrade. We're ready to go. That was my first one. And then I was like, what? It happened? It happened already? Oh, cool. It was seamless. And then the second one, I was a little nervous. Third and fourth, I don't even think about it because we can make changes on the fly. We can introduce new technology, new improvements, new security protocol, better portals, better lines, larger bandwidth. We can do anything we want, and we don't even have to stop the network. There is no blockchain on the planet that can do that right now. None. And so this is another reason why you would consider this for longevity and stability. It's fixed. You can augment it. It's globally accessible. It's cheap. And you yield while self-custodying. Please find me another network that can do anything like that, and we will have some great discussions because we got to figure out which one's better at that point. Nothing has these attributes in blockchain, but this network is hidden under 20,000 other projects, and a lot of people are confused because they don't know how to research the tech.
So you mine Cardano?
I'm sorry?
You mine Cardano?
I validate transactions on the Cardano network. So Cardano is issued as payment for validation. It's not the same as mining like on Bitcoin where it's competitive. It's everybody gets selected, which means if you were to open a node tomorrow, sir, you would start making money on that. And you would as well, and you would as well, and you would as well. Because it's a round robin system. Every single person gets picked to validate at some point if they meet all the criteria.
Is that going to be the next session, how to set up a Cardano node?
If you guys ever want me to build a node live, you let me know. Bring your laptops and we'll all launch some nodes. I built 9 of them at a high school a couple years ago. And what's that?
Is that what you teach as well?
No, I don't teach. I'm retired, but I work with CCSD, UNLV, SIM, and a few other places, and we're trying to get the knowledge out to everybody.
What you said you teach about, like your consulting company, is that your?
Yes, Carpool Education, we teach blockchain application, real world use.
And how to build those?
Yeah, if you want. That's probably a different fee scale, though. Yeah, it's probably a different fee scale. But, yes, sir.
What's the most unique and creative wallet key you've seen?
A wallet key? Gosh, I don't know. There's so many. We have the Trezors, the Ledgers. Is that what you're talking about? The offline keys?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the Trezors, the Ledgers, Crypto Steals. We have, what are the other ones out there? There's like masses of them. Anyway, there's a ton. I haven't seen them, but some have flat screens. The problem is you have to make sure if you're going to use an offline key holder like that, you need to make sure that the vendor hasn't created a backdoor. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
No, not the ones that you're talking about where like the steel, they drill a hole into a piece of wood or hide it in the.
Yeah,
What are something like leaf breadcrumbs and
right.
how fun would it be to have your family do this massive like scavenger hunt to find your wallet?
I don't know if that would be fun if it was an emergency. Yeah.
Well, for like a will type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, if you create a will, then what would you do? You'd just give them direct instructions, right? Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I answered that well. Paper wallet's the same. So paper wallet's the same, but what's wrong with paper? Yeah, it can get burnt. right? It can get wet. So crypto steals would be a paper wallet, but in an indestructible fashion, or a more durable fashion, because steel is destructible. So the actual steel, yeah. So a paper wallet is the same thing as using a crypto steel. It's got your seed phrase on a piece of paper. Instead of a piece of paper, we do it on a piece of steel. And so it's the same thing. It's a paper wallet is just a crypto steel, yeah. Any other questions? Who didn't know what this was about? Who didn't understand what we were going to be talking about today? Are you guys kind of shocked? Were you expecting to get this kind of narrative with blockchain? Or were you?
I didn't know what to expect.
I don't know that it's going to weaken our negotiating powers.
Unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case. It will definitely take some liberties away from us. And so the more people know about that, the more they can make an educated decision. I heard a lady, she was really excited about the CBDC because she said she realized she would be getting her direct deposit like a day earlier. And I'm like, I hope that's enough. Because it shouldn't be, right? We need to think deeper than this. We can't be superficial or lazy about it. And the problem is we are very complacent as a culture because we've been so well cared for. And now we have to actually stand up on our weak, wobbly legs and learn this and figure out where our responsibility lies. And it lies with communications with guys like Doc to make sure that he gets the message of what's going on so he can start to push the right information to the right people so we can maintain our liberties and our rights. And so this is why we try and write some of these BDRs with Hammond and a few of the guys, because we know that it is important. We have other people on the field, and they're pushing the wrong narrative because they misunderstand the real layer one use case. And so it's a tough battle right now. It's a battle of education. And in the meantime, I'm trying to capture people and place them safe in these third-party, neutral, non-government environments and say, okay, hang tight, we're going to try and hash this stuff out over here. And then when we know what's safe, at least you're in a neutral global environment, you can move into whatever you prefer.
Education and legislation.
Yes, sir? That's it. That's it. And I'm always happy to spend time with you cooking some stuff up. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys let me know if anybody would like to meet up with me or schedule an appointment and talk further on this. Okay, bud. I'll get you. Well, you have my card, right? Yeah. You guys scan my QR for my business card, and I'm happy to sit with you guys in a Zoom meeting. Just anybody who wants to scan that. Happy to sit with you guys in a Zoom meeting, give you guys further data. I have data on this like crazy because I'm a data nut. I built 54 decks on this explaining how this works. I'm happy to go through as many decks as you guys can tolerate because for some reason this topic just does not bore me. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate your time.